On August 10, 1990, in the quiet American town of Dickinson, a terrible crime occurred. An 8-year-old girl was kidnapped, raped, and her body with a slit throat was thrown into an anthill. For many years the criminal remained free, but after 2 decades he was finally caught. 20 years after that horrible day, the police arrested the criminal. He was charged with the rape and murder of the girl. It turned out that the girl he thought had died had actually survived and had been looking for him all this time. The police asked him, "Do you remember the 8-year-old girl you raped and killed? She's with us now." The criminal burst into tears. In 1990, Jennifer Shuet was just a regular second-grade student. She loved learning, hanging out with friends, and reading a lot. She was also afraid of the dark, so she often slept with her mom in the same bed. On August 10, 1990, Jennifer again decided to sleep in her mom's bed. But she couldn't fall asleep. Her mom, Elaine Shuet, had a tough day at work ahead and needed to wake up early, so the girl decided to sleep in her own bed. Jennifer read in bed until she dozed off. However, she woke up in the arms of a stranger who was carrying her to a car. The girl tried to scream, but the man covered her mouth with his hand. The stranger quickly got into the car, sat behind the wheel, and placed the girl on his lap to prevent her from escaping or screaming, trying to calm Jennifer down by claiming he was an undercover policeman. The kidnapper stopped in the parking lot next to Jennifer's school, told her to look at the moon, and promised that when the moon changed color, her mom would come, even though her mom was sleeping at home and had no plans to go anywhere. Later, Jennifer recounted that the stop in the parking lot was apparently necessary for the criminal to prepare himself for what he was about to do. He took out a knife and, after raping the girl, strangled her, but not completely. After that, he slit her throat and threw her out of the car. Jennifer was losing consciousness and then regaining it, unable to move or scream. She saw cars on the highway through the grass, feeling ants crawling on her and biting her body. But the girl felt at peace, understanding that maybe she was already dying. Each time she regained consciousness, she was surprised that she was still alive. In the morning, Elaine Shuet discovered that her daughter was not in the room and called the police, but there were only 3 officers, making the search for the little girl practically hopeless. Jennifer woke up when playing children stumbled upon her. Their game turned into a horrifying discovery when they saw the blood. The next time Jennifer regained consciousness, she was already surrounded by the police. They were not sure if the girl would survive and were preparing to investigate a murder. Despite losing a lot of blood, Jennifer still tried to defend herself from any man approaching her, but they managed to calm her down and took her to the operating room. The girl was saved, even though the knife had damaged her vocal cords and trachea, but had not affected any major blood vessels. Jennifer found it difficult to be in the hospital. She couldn't calm down and believe the doctors, remembering that the person who tried to kill her had pretended to be a police officer. Police were searching for the criminal who had left the crime scene, leaving DNA evidence on Jennifer's clothes. Due to her physical and emotional state, questioning her was very difficult, complicating the case. Jennifer could not speak due to throat injuries, so her mother and nurses helped conduct the questioning. She remembered his name was Dennis and that he had a scar on his face. However, even creating a composite sketch with the help of a police artist yielded no results. Jennifer quickly recovered after the incident. After she began speaking again in the hospital, she was able to return to school. The family moved to a new home. Only the fear of the kidnapper remained, who had still not been caught, despite all police efforts. Several years after the events, Jennifer enrolled in college, then got a job as a librarian. And only 18 years later, a new investigator took on her case. Tim Cromie was hopeful he could find the criminal. After talking to Jennifer, he brought in FBI agent Richard Renison. Jennifer herself had lost hope of solving the case of her abduction, but as DNA collection techniques became more advanced over time, new investigators were able to identify a suspect. His name was Dennis Earl Bradford. The photograph on Dennis Bradford's driver's license shocked the police. The portrait described by the 8-year-old Jennifer matched the picture on the documents. At the time, he was only 20 years old, and he admitted to being sick, incompetent, a dumb son of a B*************. It turned out he was the one who kidnapped the girl. As a result of all the events, Dennis was on the brink of suicide, but he lacked the resolve. Nonetheless, he had to temporarily go to a psychiatric hospital. Incredibly, during the same period when Jennifer was in the hospital, her assailant was undergoing treatment in the psychiatric ward just a couple of 100 meters away from her. He was cured and released. In Hot Springs, Dennis met 18-year-old Lisa in 1991 and married her 6 months later. They had 2 children, but their marriage fell apart due to Dennis's alcohol addiction. In 1996, in a bar, Dennis invited an attractive woman to have a drink together. She refused, but after several attempts, he convinced her to play pool. At the end of the evening, he assaulted her, beating her but not killing her. He was arrested, charged with kidnapping and rape, and sentenced to 12 years in prison. However, he served less than 3 years, as previously he had no serious convictions. In prison, he behaved well and was released early. In 2000, Bradford moved to North Little Rock. His neighbors described him as a kind person who was ready to help if needed. In 2004, he married Elizabeth Weber, a single mother with 3 children. In 2009, Bradford, who was considered a good man, was arrested after it was revealed that Jennifer Shuet was alive all this time and she was helping the police in their search. After confessing to the crime, Bradford was remanded in custody awaiting trial, and Jennifer stated that she was not a victim but a survivor. Jennifer was preparing for court, rewriting her speech over and over again. She wanted to look Bradford in the eye and tell him that he couldn't break her. Her goal was to see her kidnapper behind bars, so he couldn't harm anyone else. In May 2010, Jennifer found out that Bradford had taken his own life in his cell. She was devastated, as she couldn't express all her anger and pain to him face to face. Jennifer had always said she didn't want him to end his own life, and now she felt empty. Jennifer wasn't going to give up. She read her speech at Dennis Bradford's grave on August 10, 2010, then turned to her future husband and asked, "Do you think he can hear me?" It was at that moment a red ant bit her ankle. How did the future husband come into the story? Jennifer met Jonathan back in college, and they had been inseparable ever since. Jonathan had always supported her in her pursuit of justice, comforted her when things seemed hopeless, and was incredibly patient in showing his care. After the assault, Jennifer couldn't conceive a child on her own. But in 2012, she and Jonathan decided they wanted to have a baby. Dr. Craig White from Texas offered them a free IVF treatment. This is how Jenna came into the world. In 2014, Jennifer and Jonathan got married, and a few years later, the doctor helped them conceive again, and they had a son named John. The family now lives in Leak City, Texas.